Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we went to a void station to investigate why it had gone silent for apparently over 30 years, and found that it had been attacked by the Dark Eldar. And after getting what information we could from the cogitators and a dead Astra path, we came back and now have to talk to Omicron.
Tech Priest, did your sacred contraptions locate any life signals in our vicinity?
Negative. Sensors failed to detect significant void traffic or any considerable proof of life. No Vox transmissions in the area, except for an automated broadcast signal on the Astra Militarum channels. It is originating from an Astra Militarum command post. Standard procedures, Inquisitor?
No. Use a rogue trader identification psalms for now. The Dark Eldar usually don't employ human mercenaries. Something is going on. Perhaps a surprise visit will clear the fog. My task is to shed light on what happened in the system. If they try to hinder me, I'll make sure that they wish they were in the penal regiments of the commissariat. When morale sinks low, depravity and laziness sets in. Attention, guardsmen. Inquisitor taking command. You were right, though. They were monsters, ready to sleep on Imperial Guard.
Alright, so let's start getting into the Dark Eldar lore. So the first obvious thing you can notice is the name, Dark Eldar. There's obviously Eldar, which, for the sake of simplicity, space elves. The Dark Eldar are the, I would say evil, but honestly, everybody's evil in 40K. Morality is subjective, and 40K has a penchant for making everybody suck. Now, before I can even really get into the Dark Eldar, I have to essentially go way back into the past to how the Dark Eldar formed. Way before the Empire of Man became the big, lumbering, sluggish juggernaut that it is, the Eldar had an empire. It was far greater than even the Empire of Man at its peak, and the Eldar didn't have to deal with much. They kept the orcs corralled pretty well, they dealt with the Necrons, and they were all just hiding in their tombs. The Tyranids didn't exist, and chaos wasn't that big a deal. Because everything was dealt with, and Tau didn't exist. The Tau were actually fairly accelerated evolution in terms of going from nothing to spacefaring to galactic threat. But the Eldar, they became lazy. And with that laziness, they started letting machines do things, and much like Rome and really any other ancient society, as they became lazy, they became depraved. They started doing really messed up cult stuff. They created the cult of pleasure. You can take a stab as to what they did in that. What happened was they essentially reached levels of depravity no one knew existed, and managed to breach the divide between real space and the warp. As a result, their depravity created almost a consciousness. Slanesh. They formed a chaos god out of how messed up they were, and how lazy and disgusting. in that process, Slaanesh killed trillions, wiped out entire planets, countless planets of their inhabitants. Slaanesh is called the one who thirsts for reason to suck the souls out of people. As a result, you had, before even Slaanesh, the Eldar divided up. There were Exodites, people who said, hey, I don't like this weird hedonistic lifestyle you guys have. We're gonna go live as country bumpkins on a planet and be happy. You had some Eldar who were like, yo, we're gonna live on... The Exodites also did this, lived on the Virgin Worlds. Worlds that were pretty nice. You had those who lived on Craft Worlds, which were pseudo-space station-y stuff. They lived on those, were happy. And then you had everybody else who's just messed up. The Dark Eldar founded their city of Camorra within the Webway. Of course, they broke off from the mainstay Eldar, evaded the whole souls thirsting kind of trick, but they're effectively a different race. All Eldar are inherently psychic. They're all psychers and can be super powerful. The problem is, it draws Slaanesh's attention, because it's the power of the warp. The standard Eldar have what is called a Soul Stone. Essentially, the absolute split second they die, their soul gets sucked into this gem. It keeps them safe, because, Slaanesh can't suck a soul if it's already somewhere. And it allows people to have their souls placed into things like the Wraith Bone, which is used to create, I'm trying to think, like Dread Knights and things of that nature. They're dreadnoughts, but for Eldar, piloted by a soul. They're pretty cool. They're really neat looking, honestly. But so, the Dark Eldar kind of came up with their own trick. Instead of, enhancing their psionic abilities or their psychic abilities, they enhance their physical capabilities. And because the Eldar live on all these craft worlds, the Dark Eldar have Camorra. The city in the Webway, that's all they've got. And the thing with them is, they're depraved, but they're not stupid. The Dark Eldar realize, hey, we don't have all the tricks that the regular Eldar do. They are willing to warp flesh like there's no tomorrow. We've seen a couple little minions here that are Dark Eldar. I didn't get a good shot of them, but I just flat out ganked them. They'll put people into arenas to fight. There was one homunculus, which is a scientist, like a flesh shaper, effectively. And he created a weapon that would turn people into pillars of salt, effectively, or crystal. So literally ripping off the whole biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah and the fate of Lot's wife. But, whatever. Games Workshop isn't known for being the most creative when existing religion exists, and I can't blame them. Honestly, it's a damn good bit. But what happens is, the Eldar build up their physical capabilities, and psionic abilities are just not talked about. That is something, you can do a lot of messed up stuff with the Dark Eldar and in Camorra, and they'll just be like, oh yeah, that's totally fine, Torture, setting up gladiatorial arenas where you kidnap people and make them fight, taking off every limb except arms and putting more arms on a man so he's just arms. Replace his head with an arm, his legs with arms. He's just a starfish made of arms. You can do that. But talk about using psionic abilities, using psychers? you're going to get some weird looks and probably booted out of Camorra, because that can lead Slaanesh to where the whole city is. They're hidden. They work as marauders. They're pirates. They're cool with what they do, and they don't want to risk it. They lead these massive raids to enslave people. And it's all kind of cool, honestly. The Dark Eldar, they don't get they don't get nearly as much lore as they deserve, but the stuff they get is pretty neat. But so the Dark Eldar, they're an interesting lot, for sure. More physically adept than your standard Eldar, equipped with some pretty cool stuff. They use the webway to conduct their raids, so they can just pop out of seemingly nowhere. One thing they learn to do to kind of rejuvenate themselves and just to kind of mask their presence is use pain. Torture is effectively not just a tool of getting information, but a tool to keep them alive. In one instance, I can't remember the story, which bothers me, but a Dark Eldar was actually threatened with a drug that would numb their nerve endings, effectively making it so they can't feel anything, and they need those sensations to exist effectively. And it's kind of like being a musician and going deaf, where it's like you kind of need that, you kind of need to hear. And that's how it was for them. And the Dark Eldar immediately acquiesced, like, of course they're going to, they can't not. But so I know this is kind of a very all-over-the-place intro, but I feel like it gives you a pretty good idea of what the Eldar are about. Sadistic, masochist, space pirates. They do have, in terms of like grand scale fighting, they do have things like Titans. If you play the Ultimate Apocalypse mod for Dawn of War 1, you can see some of the stuff. Granted, Dawn of War 1 does not give the Dark Eldar the love they deserve. There are things in this game, like the Talos and other things, the Urgul wretches and things of that nature. They're just not in that game, which is a shame, because the Dark Eldar, I feel like they have a really bad roster just because it's not very broad compared to, Imperial Guard, Space Marines, Chaos.
I agree. Let's see what his possible possessions tell us.
But so, it would be nice to see them actually get the coverage they deserve in games. I know Dawn of War 2, they didn't even touch the Dark Eldar. I was like, what? Why? I like the normal Eldar, but come on. The Dark Eldar work pretty differently. Both are fairly hit and run, but Dark Eldar just... when you actually sit down and look at their units and just their weaponry, it is fairly different. Plus, they have the Dais of Destruction. Imagine Jabba the Hutt's barge, but it has this dope sweeping laser beam on the front that just obliterates people.
Busy down here, tech please, but yes, that's a good idea.
Oh, one other thing worth mentioning is the Dark Eldar do have factions. It isn't just, you know, the Dark Eldar. There are effectively different pirate and mercenary groups. Well, I guess it's more pirate than mercenary, but they all live in Camorra to some degree, and there is a leader. I can't remember the guy's name, because who cares, honestly? The name is irrelevant, just the fact that they are, to a degree, unified. Would they fight each other, if you're asking within lore terms? I'd say yeah. If two groups were to come upon a planet and were like, hey, we're doing a slave raid here, and the other's like, no, we're doing a slave raid here, I'm sure someone would start throwing punches. I can't imagine the, you know, sadomasochistic space elves would be like, oh, you know, a deal's a deal, you know, you came here first. You called dibs. We have to follow the law of dibs here in space. I think they would just be like, nah, screw it, this is ours now. And there is the bit that the Inquisitor mentioned. The webway isn't well known. It's kept a secret for a reason. And because we don't need more people trying to monkey with it. Because you know there'd be some overly ambitious Imperial Guard general who's like, you're telling me there's like an intergalactic pathway we can take, and it's full of monsters we can purge. And you know someone would just send billions of guys to their death in cosmic space hallways.
I finished cleaning out the base. It's hardly surprising. The warp surges have left entire systems abandoned for too long, far from the light of the Emperor. On the other hand, this is new. The Dark Eldar systematically corrupting entire systems for decades. The Conclave has to know about this.
Alright, so that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button. It helps out the channel a lot. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.